everybody. Welcome to day one. Michael Jackson.
What really makes Michael work is that it understands something a lot of music biopics still struggle with. It is not enough to replay the hits and trust the audience to do the emotional lifting for you. A movie like this has to create an actual person inside the icon. It has to make the spectacle matter because of the human being standing in the middle of it. And that is where Michael separates itself from a lot of the genre. This is not just a jukebox parade with expensive wigs and familiar choreography. It is trying to give me a version of Michael Jackson that feels emotionally readable. Even when the story is at its most theatrical, a huge part of that success comes from Jaafar Jackson. He does not just resemble Michael Jackson in a vague, convenient way. He understands the tiny rhythms, the smile, the softness in the voice, the sudden precision in the movement, the strange combination of fragility and total command that made Michael Jackson feel both impossibly famous and weirdly unreachable at the same time. There are moments where it becomes easy to forget you are watching an actor at all. That effect becomes even stronger in the concert material, which sounds like one of the movie's biggest strengths. These sequences do not appear to function as simple crowd pleasers dropped in to wake the audience up. They seem built with real skill, real patience, and the kind of visual confidence a movie like this desperately needs. If a Michael Jackson biopic cannot make the performance scenes feel electric, then the whole thing collapses. Michael does not seem to have that problem. From the descriptions, the stage sequences have enough force to feel like full-on event filmmaking, and Jaafar seems to carry them with the exact kind of intensity the role demands. The film also makes the smart choice of not putting all of Michael Jackson on one actor's shoulders. Giuliano Valdi, who plays him in Childhood, sounds like a major reason the first third works as well as it does. That stretch matters more than people sometimes realize in a biopic like this. You cannot just explain pain later and expect it to land. You need the audience to actually feel how early the loneliness, the pressure, and the talent were fused together. If Valdi captures both the extraordinary ability and the emotional isolation of Michael as a child, then the film gets to build its later tragedy on something real instead of just inherited mythology. The supporting cast seems to understand the assignment too. Coleman Domingo's Joseph Jackson comes across as the kind of figure you are supposed to recoil from, not glamorize, and that is the correct choice. Joseph should feel damaging. He should feel like a source of pressure so intense that it reshapes the entire house around him. Nia Long appears to bring some of the film's emotional softness as Catherine, giving the story a needed counterweight. In a movie with this much performance, spectacle, and pain, you need someone who can keep the emotional ground from falling away completely. What also stands out is the way Michael seems to avoid one of the most common traps in music biopics, letting the songs do all the heavy lifting while the story underneath stays shallow. That has been a criticism of the genre for years, and not unfairly. Too often these films lean so hard on recognizable music that they forget to build an actual dramatic spine. But Michael apparently does a better job than most of integrating the songs into a narrative that can stand without them. The audience may come in for Billie Jean, Beat It, and the Moonwalk, but the movie still has to hold together in the scenes where nobody is singing and from what is being described. That part mostly works. The movie seems interested in Michael Jackson's inner life, not only as a performer, but as someone shaped by pain, isolation, expectation, and a near impossible relationship to fame. That alone already puts it on stronger footing than plenty of recent music biopics, especially the ones that flatten their subjects into either saints or cartoons. One of the reasons Elvis divided people, for example, is that it often felt more interested in exaggeration than intimacy. Michael sounds like it is at least trying to move in the opposite direction. That said, the film is not without weak points. Some of Michael Jackson's family members, including Paris Jackson and Janet Jackson, have reportedly expressed dissatisfaction with the film, with criticism suggesting that parts of the story feel sanitized, softened, or unreal. That is serious context, because a movie can be emotionally effective and still feel selective in how it chooses its truth. that may be the tension sitting underneath the whole experience. Michael sounds like a movie that nails performance, scale, iconography, and emotional immediacy, but may still leave some people asking whether it is presenting a version of Michael Jackson polished for or rather than fully open for interrogation. It becomes even more noticeable when a film this committed to grandeur starts repeating certain beats, especially the material involving Joseph. Once the movie establishes that Michael's father was harsh and deeply damaging, it has to be careful not to keep hammering the same point at the expense of momentum. Then there is Bubbles. In a movie that otherwise sounds visually rich and carefully designed, a distracting CGI chimpanzee can stick out like a loose wire in a silk suit. When the audience is fully locked into the illusion, one off-looking digital choice can suddenly yank it back into the mechanics of filmmaking. That may be a relatively minor complaint in the grand scheme of things, but in a movie working this hard to immerse viewers, even a small break in texture matters. Still, when you step back and look at the full picture, Michael sounds like a very strong version of what this genre can be when it is taken seriously. It is energetic. It is funny in the right places. It seems emotionally engaged instead of mechanically assembled. And above all, it sounds committed to making Michael Jackson feel like more than a playlist with a costume budget. That alone is worth a lot. If the movie really leaves audiences disappointed only because they want more of the story by the time it ends, that is not a bad problem to have. The ending tease matters too. The idea that the story continues suggests the filmmakers know this first chapter is not trying to contain the whole legend. Michael Jackson's life, career, contradictions, and cultural impact were always too large to fit cleanly inside one film. If this movie succeeds at making people feel the scale of that while still delivering a compelling dramatic experience, then it has done something most biopics only dream of doing. Michael may not be perfect. It may be too clean in places, too extended in others, and too willing to let certain visual flourishes do some of the work. But if Jaafar Jackson truly delivers the kind of uncanny, full-body performance this reaction suggests, then the movie already has the one thing a project like this cannot survive without: a center strong enough to hold all that legend. And when that center is right, everything else starts to move the way it should. Until the next one, keep the volume up because some legends are too big to whisper.